All right, I'll say, how are you all this evening of your time as you create time to exist?
Terrific.
All right.
Allow us to begin this interaction this evening of your time with the understanding that although we are extraterrestrial in origin, this means several things. What it does not mean in any way, shape, or form is that we are better than you. No. We are different than you. We are focused in, shall we say, a different manner than you. But from our perspective, all creation, whether it is non-physical or physical creation, is on equal ground. For qualitatively speaking, there is no better, there is no worse, there is only different. And we say this because our purpose in interacting with you in this format, in this time of your timing, is, shall we say, if we are doing it properly, to put ourselves out of a job. Our message to your society has always been the idea of self-empowerment. For within our society, each and every individual is consistently and always cognizant of their connection to what you call God and to what we call all that is. And therefore, we recognize the equality in quality between all creations. We make this point, for it is never our intention, and in fact, the reasoning for our communications with you in this fashion, instead of, as you say, face-to-face contact, is because in our perception at this time of your development, many in your society, upon encountering the landing of our spacecraft, would, as you say, fall down to the ground at our feet. And this is not, never has been, never will be our desire. For we have said to you, we will render this format useless and obsolete when you are walking in equality, living examples of your own self-empowerment. And at that point in time, when we can interact with you in a blatantly physical manner, there will be less of questioning, looking to guidance from your society to our society, and more of the idea of, shall we say, a sharing of perspectives, a sharing of experience and physical reality. We look forward very greatly to this day, but for now, we choose to communicate with you in this manner, for the information comes to you in, shall we say, somewhat of an unconventional manner, and as we have said, we can never prove to you that what we say is true. We never do expect that you will take for granted things that we share with you just because we have said it. But the information is provable, very provable, 100% provable, but only by you. We desire to impart this information to your society at this time, for as a society in a collective fashion, you have come to the juncture in your development whereby your vibration will accept and allow our presence within your society, but for the time being only within this manner. the lack of credibility that this matter has had in your society will facilitate that the information is what is conveyed from us to you, that you pay attention to the message and not the messenger. For we have noticed a propensity in your society for, as we have said, worshiping the messenger and throwing the message out the window. This has become very popular with what you have labeled, and we are not in any way, shape, or form denigrating this idea, for in its true form, in its intended presentation, it is exactly that which we are imparting to you. But the idea of Christianity, simply because we have noticed the propensity in and within this established idea in your society for people to, as we have said, latch on to the messenger, latch on to the idea of the Christ, while walking around in action, not performing that which the Christ had prescribed. Simply, we have found that people are more concerned about getting other people to join the club than they are in realizing what the club actually represents. For one of the ideas we discussed last evening of your time, and one of the ideas of the major themes of your Jesus Christ, was the idea of lack of judgment, the idea of acceptance of all that is, because it exists, and only because it exists. The example cited within your Bible of this idea was upon the idea that there was an unconditional acceptance by that entity, the Christ entity, for any individual upon your planet, no matter what the perceived sin may have been of that individual. And indeed his very entourage included the ideas, as we have said, from king to prostitute. This is certainly a graphic example of living that idea. However, upon your planet, and again this is more an observation, we do not criticize, for we respect all paths, but there is within that club much judgment, much of the, quote, spreading of the word is linked with the idea of judging that others are falling short. We suggest to realize that those words did not and would not come out of the mouth of Jesus. For Jesus unconditionally did accept not only those who chose to believe him, not only those whose lamp he did light, but also those who did, as you say, nail him to the cross. For he had unconditional loving acceptance of even those who, as you say, terminated his life. So therefore, we wish to allow your society, and incidentally, we do perceive that it is heading in that direction, which is again what allows us to communicate with you. That this idea is being gravitated toward, and day by day, soul by soul, there is a cohesive movement or evolution toward that idea of less of a judging, of acceptance, of diversity. For as we have also said many times, in our society, in many other societies, within the association of worlds, that recognition of unity and diversity ultimately unified civilizations, unified planets, and paradoxically, you have believed that if you go along with the group, you will lose your individuality. This is not the case. No, shall we say, it does not have to be the case, for you can create any reality. You can put weight behind any belief system you do choose. Not one is any less real than another. Simply, you have had belief systems which you have labeled by definition mutually exclusive of one another. However, that is just a definition, and that can, as easily as phrasing it, be changed. For your belief system can be such that it allows others to have their belief system. And this is the key and the idea of which we speak. Acceptance of others and the idea of their right to be who they are. We are not saying that one should necessarily condone that which they do not believe in, or patronize that which they do not believe in. However, allow that alternate train of thought to be in your mind valid as a reality. For it is the idea of invalidating the reality of others that, in a sense, in a very real sense, does result in self-invalidation. For if you cannot accept all that is, you will on some portion of your own individuality not accept that corresponding portion of yourself. For all your reality is but that, a reflection of yourself. This does not mean that you must experience all aspects of that which you are validating, but it is simply that you do contain it. For trying to push away an idea is paradoxically a way to keep it hanging around. In our interactions with you, we have noticed, not that we keep a constant eye on you, you do have your privacy, as you say, but we have noticed that within particularly the idea of this group, and that surrounding the immediate idea of this group, that these ideas are, shall we say, sinking in. You are doing very well, both individually and collectively. And moving toward what we have said is the day whereby we may meet face to face. We are very desirous of that type of interaction. But at this timing, we shall remain interacting with you in this form, in this format, as we also enjoy this format. A very brief explanation of the idea of this channeling. In your society, there is prominent at this time, although very far back in your history, this is nothing new, emerging the idea of channeling, in which many individuals in your society are allowing themselves in a very receptive state to be aware of other consciousness, of other aspects of their own consciousness, of other beings, of what you have called the ideas of spirit guides, angels, and the like, as you say, those interactions are more of the nature whereby there is somewhat of a mental vocalization that is then vocalized, and in a sense, a telephone or conveying of information that is received, whereby in our usage of this physiological channel and other physiological channels that we have come through to communicate with you at this time, it is not so much this idea. We are using technology, but we do not speak your language. I have, through my interactions with your society, shall we say, picked up a few words, but that is not the idea of how this communication does take place. For what we do is project our intention in our terminology, although we loosely use that term, for we at this time in our society have no language, no vocalizations per se. Our communication between our members of our society is telepathic, more precisely the idea of telepathic, for it is emotionally conveyed. So we are not sitting on our end of the things and speaking, and then the physiological channel is repeating those words. We are sending our intention. We are sending our desire. We are sending our information in, shall we say, chunks. And what occurs is the subconscious of the physiological channel. As you have divided yourself up into portions, one of them being a subconscious, is accessed by this intention, by the ideas we wish to convey, and then the vocabulary, the memory of whatever physiological channel then does translate this idea. So often, or not very often, but from time to time, because of this removed step of communication, our verbalizations may not be entirely representative of what it is that we are trying to get across, but we have, through experience with this format, been getting much better at this idea. The point of this is that from time to time, when you do interact with us and ask a question of us, the answer that is delivered to you in a linguistic fashion has the limitation of the physiological channel's memory, the physiological channel's vocabulary. And although we are able to work very well within these parameters, from time to time, because of your individual differences in your subconscious understanding, in your interpretation of language, you may not fully comprehend or have gotten the idea we are trying to convey. So therefore, we again reiterate to you, we enjoy and are very excited by the idea of these interactions, for it enables us to share and drink from consciousness with you. Therefore, should you ask a question, should you be involved in an interaction, and for some reason you are not, shall we say, satisfied with the answer, simply ask for a clarification. It only serves you to interact with us most fully, although whatever you get does serve you. I assure you of that. If you feel on a conscious level clarified, we have not yet run into an issue that when clarification was requested, we have not been able in some way, shape, or approach to nail down. Allow us to do so. We do not give, as you say, pat answers. Our answers, although a sentence may be somewhat similar from an earlier answer, are each anew, are each individual, are each fresh, and have, from our side of things, a very specific purpose, which may actually differ from individual to individual within the group. Therefore, if one person is asking a question and another person desires clarification, take that opportunity to request such clarification. Do not for the purposes of continuity at that point. Then take the liberty of asking your question, for we wish to finish the question of one before moving on to the idea of question of another. Therefore, all can be answered, all can be addressed, all can have interaction. But by all means, if this leads you to another question, simply say that and wait for your opportunity to share. A final note before we do open up this interaction for sharing is the idea of, in a sense, as we have said, to be on equal footing, equal ground with you. Please feel free to simply make a statement, for although an aspect of sharing may be ask question, answer question, it may also be give statement. And we do desire and greatly find joy in your bold statements of your situation, for it is all new to us. And we do appreciate the difference of your focus. Again, we reiterate, for it is a very important point that we are trying to convey. You exist in what we have labeled a type of physicality you have called third dimensional. We have called third density. The first 4 dimensions or densities are physical. You have, shall we say, some representational body or some representational manifestation within physicality. Although, as you move into 4th, the distinguishing feature between 3rd and 4th is that 4th allows you always to feel and cognize your connection with God, or all that is. There is not such the feeling of separation, while you still do have an individualized, separate body. Although, from your perception, you may find more joy in this idea, again, we emphasize there is no qualitative difference. There is nothing better about 4th density than 3rd, than 2nd, than 1st. They are all explorations. They are all focuses within certain ideas that allow you as an oversoul to incarnate and experience different aspects of physicality. And we wish that you do view it that way. Does not mean you can't look forward to the idea of 4th density. For as we have said, it is very much fun. But do not invalidate the density you are within. And this is very important. Do not invalidate the fact that you have chosen that reality. Again, we know upon your planet, you do create the scenario whereby you do not remember or choose to remember that you have created your reality. And this happens to the point where when one may tell you you do create your own reality, you say, that's a bunch of hooey. The fact is, you can at any time take back the power by that simple realization. By the simple realization that you are within third density. Therefore, you must have chosen to be in third density. You don't get dealt a bad deck. You are in control of your reality, and that mere recognition, that mere realization is all it does take to take back that control. If you have created that scenario of seeming, and we emphasize seeming helplessness, it is a perceived helplessness. You are actually creating the idea that you are not creating your reality. Very interesting. That is one of the fascinations we do have for your society. However, you are now within what we have labeled the transformational age. Your awareness upon your planet of this idea you have labeled New Age, the movement from old age to new age. And this is indeed a very valid transformation that will take place within, as you say, within this generation. So it is very beneficial for you to decide to take back your creatorhood of your reality, your responsibility for having chosen being in this reality, and utilizing this reality to be, as we have said, the purpose of all existence, the best you can be. The parameters, because many of you in your interactions with us have always asked us, well, what is my purpose? The parameters for deciding what your purpose is what we have shared for you, your idea of excitement. If you think about it, it is not that unobvious that certain ideas excite you which do not excite another. We are talking, when we speak to you, about the idea of excitement with the idea of integrity. We will go into that in a moment. However, why does, as you have said colloquially, something float your boat and not another? It is obvious to us that this is your way of telling yourself, this is me. For these are individualized expressions, these excitements. Your society, in its exploration of separation and its belief that you are not one with all that is, or God, out of this feeling of separation, have created what we have called, very creatively, the idea of lack of deserve ability. I do not deserve all the joy and ecstasy that I can have because I have been a bad boy or a bad girl. This is also a creation. If you did not deserve these things, you would not exist with the ability to perceive them. If you did not deserve to exist, you would not be sitting here now. Obviously, infinite creation believes that you deserve to exist. And as we have said, treat yourself with the same respect. We bring this up because often in your society, when something does excite you, you say, oh, I can't do that. People are not supposed to do that. Everybody knows you're irresponsible if you do that. There is no one consensus, or there would only be one being strolling around upon your planet. Look around. There are many beings. There are many points of view. They are each valid. Yours is valid. What excites you is your indication of that which is most truly you, which, if you act upon, will be your most harmoniously synchronized action with your higher self-purpose in a positive way. We spoke to you of the idea of that everything happens for a reason. There are no accidents, and we have labeled this concept synchronicity. And we briefly discussed with you the idea of positive versus negative synchronicity. The idea of positive synchronicity, in a brief fashion, is your conscious recognition of the idea that everything is there for a reason. You have created everything for a reason. There are no extraneous creations. And therefore, by gleaning the positive meaning from any creation that does exist in your life, you allow it to transform to that which you do prefer. If you choose to believe that things happen to you and are without you and not within you, you create the scenario of negative synchronicity, in which case you give your power away to these externalized ideas and, in a very real sense, are tossed around with the current, are smashed against the rocks with the waves. This can very really be the effect in your life, but the choice is yours. The simple recognition of the idea that everything does happen for a reason, everything in my life belongs there, I shall glean the positive meaning from whatever does occur, and I shall proceed in action although this is so, for your actions vary greatly if you believe this versus the idea that it is all happening to you. One person walks around with his head down, another with his head held high. There's a big difference in the reactions in your society to these two types of approaches. But the idea is, you can make this realization. What sometimes does occur, as many of you have become masters of the idea of negative synchronicity, is what we shall label a crossover or turn around period. That is the period in which you have some, shall we say, although this is not precisely so, momentum of negative synchronicity from your older beliefs. When you come to the realization that these newer beliefs are just as real, there is very often a period whereby those things that you have labeled negative, whether they occur repetitiously in your life or not, shall we say, rear their heads very strongly when you change your perspective that everything does belong there. Many times this is what does discourage people or entities from continuing. Oh, I have fallen back to my old self. Oh, this is not working. Oh, it's just a fairy tale. That is one choice to make when you come up to that idea. However, if you can, shall we say, using your colloquialism, brave through this, and although you may have labeled something negative in the past, you give it the benefit of the idea that it must be positive or it would not be there. The more truly and consistently you do this, the faster you will accelerate through this crossover period. Once you are on the other side of this crossover period, you are in synchronous accord with your positive synchronicity. There is what we have labeled a never-ending, everlasting ecstasy within your life. When I have just said that to this group, undoubtedly some of you have said, oh, that can't be true. Nobody can be happy all the time. You must struggle and be happy. You must have, as we have said, for every 10 minutes of happiness, 10 minutes of misery to balance it out. All right. You can do it that way. We are not telling you what to do and never shall. We shall only provide the perspective that in and of itself is a definition. You lay down the rules. Do you desire to live by that rule? No. We think not. We don't even offer that out as a question, for we feel the answer is no. Therefore, we have given you many ideas. Feel free if, when utilizing these ideas, you come up against things you do not understand, things that don't seem to fit in, to enter these interactions with sharings, with questions about these ideas. We will clarify what we can and allow you to clarify what you can. For again, our goal is to render our profession obsolete, so that you are each doing that for yourself. For when you walk around and act within your daily life consistently and persistently with these ideas, you will physically raise your vibration. And it is the differences within our vibration that result in our inability, or as you say, incompatibility, to interact physically. There are other reasons that we do not interact physically with you at this time. However, they are not as pertinent to this discussion. They have to do with the idea of the differing vibrations. Some of you are familiar with these ideas. However, our point is that by living in this fashion, by choosing to live in this fashion, for it is within your realm of choices, you do facilitate and accelerate our ability to see you face to face. And this is as desirous for us, although it is not necessary, for we understand there is no shoulds, as it is for you. And may we at one moment digress to the idea of integrity. Upon your planet, the word integrity has taken upon a moralistic tone. In a sense and in effect, this may be a result of the idea of integrous behavior, but it is not exactly that which we mean. We mean the idea of integrity as a root of the word integration. The understanding that we are all one thing. We are all the same thing. Paradoxically, different aspects of the same thing. It is both. It is both separate and the same. Integration will simply be labeled as that idea of that which acts in that recognition. Lack of integration is or lack of integrity is the idea of separation, acting as though you are separate from all that is, separate from, as you say, your neighbor, separate from the nature upon your planet, separate from your planet, separate from all that is. In the realization that you are not, that they are all one and the same, the ideas of positive synchronicity come into play, as well as the idea of integrity. So, when you feel excitement, when you are moved in a particular direction, you may simply, although this happens somewhat at an automatic level, if you need to desire to know whether it is within integrity or not. It is not the societal expectation, everybody knows version of integrity that we speak. It is simply asking yourself, is this action within and dovetailed to the idea of my realization of integration? Yes or no? What you will find, if not all, most of what excites you will be so. And this is what separates the idea of, as you say in your planet, running amok and proceeding in synchronous accord with the purpose of your higher self. In return for your willingness to interact with us in this fashion, in return for your willingness to act in a sense as ambassadors of your civilization, and allowing me to act as ambassador for our respective civilization, which do label approximately 370 civilizations. There are many listening in to these interactions. I ask you now, how may I be of service to you?